You ever look around and wonder, why does it feel like you're making decent money but still always broke? Well, you're not alone. There's a new kind of poor that doesn't look like the old school version of struggling. No torn clothes, no empty fridge, just a constant anxiety about money, even with a paycheck coming in. See, being broke today isn't always obvious. You might have the latest iPhone, go out for brunch, even drive a nice car. But if one unexpected bill could throw your whole life into chaos, you're not as financially secure as you think. In this video, we're breaking down 18 signs that you might be part of the new poor. The ones who seem fine on the surface, but are stuck in a financial trap without even realizing it. Let's get into it. Number 1, you've got a job, not a career, and AI could steal that too. You make just enough to cover rent, bills, and the occasional night out. It's not exactly comfortable, but hey, it's working for now. As long as nothing unexpected happens, you're fine. Your job? It's not your dream. You don't really care about moving up because that just means more stress doing something you already don't like. So you put in the bare minimum, not enough to get noticed, but not bad enough to get fired either. And your boss? They pay you just enough so you don't walk away. It's this weird silent agreement where neither of you is happy, but both of you settle. Meanwhile, you have this vision of a different life. Maybe it's moving to the countryside, growing your own food, and setting up a small rental business on the side. Or maybe it's finally doing something creative, something that actually excites you. But here's the thing. You've been saying this for years, maybe even a decade, and yet here you are, still in the same place. Technology keeps changing, jobs keep shifting, but you assume you'll figure it out when the time comes. Except every year those options shrink a little more. The world moves forward and you're still waiting for the right time. So instead, you push it all to the back of your mind and keep going like nothing's wrong. Number 2, you're drowning in student loans or other debt. You went to school, you got that degree, but now in today's economy, it feels like it didn't really do much for you. You're sticking with this career path, not because you love it, but because you don't want to feel like you threw all that money down the drain. Meanwhile, you've probably noticed plumbers and electricians are out there making way more than you, without all the student loans. And speaking of debt, here's something to really think about. You're not just broke, you're actually below broke. A homeless person on the street might not have a lot, but they at least have something. Maybe a little change in their pocket, or a shelter to get by. You, though, you're in the negative. You owe more than you've got, and that's a tough spot to be in. Even if you start making money, the first thing that happens is the bank takes its cut. Your student loans, your credit cards, all those debts. What's left for you to live on? Not much. And here's the kicker. If you can't pay it off, that debt doesn't disappear. It could end up getting passed down to your kids. So think about that for a second. Does it really make sense to keep ignoring it? Number 3, your rent's eating up half your income, or you're still under your parents' roof. So you're paying an outrageous amount of money to live in a tiny space. Maybe it's a cramped apartment with a sink that doubles as a bathroom counter. But hey, it's in the right location, right? That's what they always say, location, location, location. So now you're stuck paying premium prices for a glorified storage unit with plumbing. And here's the kicker. For the first time in history, mortgages are stretching across generations. Your parents? Yeah, they might not even finish paying off their home before they pass it down to you, along with the remaining debt. Congratulations, you just inherited a bill. Now let's talk about this idea that owning a home automatically makes you successful. A lot of people think a house is an asset. But what if I told you that the home you live in is actually a liability? Sounds weird, right? But think about it. If something is constantly costing you money and not putting any cash back in your pocket, that's not an asset. That's an expense. I know. It's easy to blame the boomers. They had it easier. Lower home prices, fewer financial hurdles, and somehow they still think you just need to stop eating avocado toast to afford a house. But at some point, none of that really matters. Complaining won't change anything. If you actually want to get ahead, you have to start playing the game differently. But hey, maybe numbers aren't your thing. Maybe thinking about money gives you a headache and you'd rather just go with the flow. That's fine, but just know the flow usually leads straight to being broke. Number 4, your emergency fund is under $1,000. Basically, you've got no emergency fund. If you suddenly stop making money today, no paycheck, no side hustle, nothing. How long could you keep up your current lifestyle? Could you cover rent, food, and bills for the next 3 months without completely panicking? If the answer is no, you're not financially stable. You're just getting by, and that's a risky place to be. Think about the last time something unexpected happened. Maybe your car broke down, your phone screen shattered, or you had an emergency expense you weren't ready for. What did you do? Chances are you borrowed money, maxed out a credit card, or sold something you liked just to stay afloat. Maybe you shrugged it off and told yourself, hey, I don't need all this material stuff anyway. But deep down, that uneasy feeling, that's your brain warning you that something isn't right. Instead of fixing the problem, you distract yourself, blame the economy, capitalism, or whatever else makes it easier to avoid looking too closely at your own situation. It's like skipping a doctor's visit because you're scared they'll find something wrong. The problem is, ignoring it doesn't make it go away. It just guarantees that when the next financial emergency hits, you'll be right back in the same cycle. But hey, that's a problem for future you, right? Number 5, your assets aren't working for you. If you want to build wealth, it's all about owning things that either make you money or appreciate in value over time. Take your car, for example. It might feel like an asset, but really it's a liability. You've got to fill it up with gas, change the oil, pay for insurance, and fix it when it breaks. It's actually costing you money just to have it. So think about it. What do you actually own that's making you money or increasing in value regularly? Here's the thing. Most people are struggling financially because they're not thinking like this. They spend money without ever thinking about how to make it work for them. For instance, we all love grabbing that overpriced coffee at Starbucks, right? But do you own any Starbucks stock? You know you can buy a share of Starbucks for around $100? In fact, most platforms let you buy a small piece of it, even less than that. And here's where it gets good. If Starbucks does well, your share goes up in value, and they also pay out dividends. For example, Starbucks pays a 2% dividend. That means for every $100 you invest, you get $2 back every year without doing anything. The best part? There's no limit to how much or how little you can invest. Even a small amount can start working for you. Number 6, inflation's outpacing your paycheck. Here's the reality. If things are getting more expensive faster than your paycheck is growing, you're part of what's being called the new poor. Let's put it into perspective. Over the last 5 years, the cost of goods and services in the US has gone up about 20%. That means everything you buy is costing you more, from food to gas to basic supplies. And then there's housing. Houses are now about 23% more expensive. Even healthcare has jumped, with medical services costing nearly 50% more. This isn't just a little bump. The prices are rising quickly, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. Now, if your income hasn't grown by at least 50% over the last 5 years, you're actually poorer than you were before, even though you're working the same job. This is the kind of financial pressure people are facing right now. In fact, we're dealing with the highest inflation in the last 40 years. Think about that. It's the toughest financial situation most of us have ever experienced. So that job you thought would always be there for you, it might not be enough anymore. You've got to start thinking about how to adapt. Number 7, everyone around you is stuck in the same rut. It's easy to feel stuck when everyone around you seems to be in the same boat, struggling just as much as you are. No one's really thriving, and it becomes kind of normal to just blame the system for everything that's going wrong, whatever the system even means. Think about it. You can usually tell a lot about a person just by looking at their friends. If everyone's facing the same problems and no one's really getting ahead, it's hard to see a way out. There's no one offering guidance or showing you a path forward. A lot of people, especially in tough situations, start to give up. They stop trying to make real changes because the problems feel too big to fix. So they settle. Mediocrity becomes the norm because it seems like there's no other option. But here's the thing. If you're stuck in a circle of people who are all stuck themselves, people who aren't pushing to do better, it might be time to look outside of that group for new perspectives. You can still be friends with them, but you're not going to find the answers to your bigger questions in that circle. To make progress, you'll need to find other sources of inspiration and motivation. Number 8, renting everything instead of building ownership. The way the market works these days, it feels like it's making it harder for you to build any real wealth. Instead of owning things that can grow in value or that you can use long-term, you're stuck paying to borrow stuff, and it adds up over time. Take transportation, for example. You don't own a car, you just use Uber. You don't have a bike, you rent an electric scooter every time you need one. It might only cost a few bucks each time, but when you add it all up, you're spending a lot more than you think. Let's say you own that scooter instead of renting it. In a few years, you could sell it and get some of your money back. But when you're renting, all that money is just gone. Gone forever. For a lot of younger people, this convenience culture is really draining their savings. The average millennial will spend over $300,000 in the next 25 years just on transportation. Money that could be used for something like investing or buying an asset. If they just stuck to using public transit, that number drops to around $75,000. And this isn't just about physical stuff. Everything's going digital now. You buy a game or some online content, and once you pay for it, it's just gone. No reselling it or getting any of that money back. It's all about spending now and never getting that value back. It's a system that makes you keep paying without ever getting ahead. You're left with fewer things of value in your life while the market gets richer. And let's not even get started on how people don't bother fixing stuff anymore. Just replace it. But that's a whole other conversation. Number 9, small purchases add up to big losses over time. Let's talk about those little treats you think are harmless. But when you break it down, you're paying way more than you should, all for the sake of convenience or status. Take Starbucks, for example. A regular cup of coffee there costs around $2.50. But if you make that same coffee at home, it'll cost you about 36 cents. You're paying more than 7 times the price for the same thing, just because of the brand. It's the same with medicine. A brand name drug can cost 5 times as much as the generic version, but guess what? They're the exact same thing chemically. The only difference is the label on the bottle. And let's not forget about designer clothes. A Gucci t-shirt might set you back $400, but it probably costs them only $6 to make it. You're paying for the name, the status, not the actual product. And even though it's out of your budget, you're still willing to pay that premium just to wear the brand. It's all marketing, making you think you're getting something special when, in reality, you're just overpaying. Number 10, living for now at the expense of tomorrow. The YOLO generation. That's who the new poor are. You know the saying, you only live once, right? It's everywhere, especially on TikTok, where people are always sharing that idea that you should just live for the moment and not worry about the future. You might hear a trending sound on social media saying, you'll make the money back, but you'll never be this age again, so just live a little. Sounds nice, right? But in reality, this kind of thinking can get you into trouble. What you're really doing is borrowing from your future. And sooner or later, that bill is going to come due. Personal responsibility matters. Let's say you've got $200 in your bank account, but also have $35,000 in debt. Would it make sense to blow $75 on a night out? Probably not. You've got to think about what you're doing now and how it'll affect you down the road. It's about making smarter choices, not just following the next trend. Number 11. You're trapped in payment plans that only cost you more. Buy now, pay later deals are everywhere, right? It's super tempting. Pay a little now, get the thing you want today, and spread out the rest over a few months. Sounds great at first, but here's the catch most people don't realize. There's interest involved, and that interest can add up to a lot more than you think. Let's say you want to buy a $1,000 phone. You think, I'll just pay in installments, no big deal. You probably imagine you'll pay 4 payments of $250, right? That's $1,000 in total. But here's the thing. Most stores don't do it like that. The average interest rate they charge is anywhere from 11% to 27%. So instead of paying $250 per payment, you're actually paying more, like $300 per installment. That means by the time you're done, you've paid $1,200, not $1,000. That's an extra $200 for the same phone. So just because you can walk out the door with the phone today doesn't always mean you can afford it. You're not just paying for the phone, you're paying extra for the privilege of paying later. Number 12, you're all digital, but cash might be the smarter move. What if cash actually works out better than using cards or payment apps? Stick with me for a sec and let me show you why this might just make sense. Imagine you've got $50 sitting in your bank account. Now, every time you make an online purchase or swipe your credit card, the payment processor, like Visa or MasterCard, takes a fee. We're talking around 2.87% to 4.35% for each transaction. But wait, it gets worse. They often charge a flat fee plus a percentage, which adds up quickly. Ask any online retailer, and they'll tell you how much they lose paying these fees. Let's follow your $50 through this process. You buy something for $50 from a store. The payment processor takes 3%, so now the store only gets $48.50. The store spends that money on something else, and the processor takes another cut. After a few transactions, your $50 has dropped down to about $47.30. If this keeps going, after 32 times, most of that money ends up in corporate pockets, not in people's hands. Now think about cash for a second. If I handed you a $50 bill, you'd have the full $50. And when you spend that money at a business, they get the full $50 too. No fees, no cuts. And on top of all that, banks charge you just for holding your own money in their accounts. So when you really think about it, cash is looking pretty solid, right? Number 13, you or your parents' retirement plan. A lot of people today are stuck in a situation where they're not just dealing with their own financial struggles, they're also taking on responsibilities that aren't even directly theirs. Let's say your parents didn't have the best financial situation growing up. No savings, no investments, and maybe not even a solid pension. Now, as they get older, they can't really take care of themselves. So it falls on you to help out. They need financial support, health care, and treatments that are becoming more and more frequent as they age. And while you're more than happy to be there for them, here's the reality check. You can barely take care of yourself. Your own finances are already tight, and now you're expected to shoulder even more of the load. Every time you try to get ahead, it feels like the hole just gets deeper. You tell yourself, I'll figure it out. But let's be honest, deep down, it's tough to feel confident when you're already running on empty. Number 14, you're missing essential skills for success. You've probably got a few hobbies, right? Like spending hours scrolling online, checking out new craft beers, diving into random conspiracy theories about cartoons, or even trying and failing to make your pet an Instagram sensation. We all have those things we enjoy, but when it comes to real-life skills, it starts to feel like you're just coasting. That's what the new poor are about. They're alive, but they don't really know how to handle the big stuff. They just sort of float along, enjoying the vibes without much direction. Maybe it's time to stop pretending your Hogwarts house on Twitter is going to pay the bills and start thinking about your financial reality. Growing up, a lot of these folks got participation trophies, meaning they were always told they were doing great, even if they weren't. This mindset led to a sense of entitlement, and now they have trouble understanding the value of hard work. They don't know what it's like to actually bring something to the table, because for most of their lives, someone else did the work for them. Number 15, talking about your money gives you the ick, but you love following rich celebs. Talking about money? Yeah, that's a tough one for a lot of people. It's almost like it's a bad thing to focus on, right? Like, oh, there's more to life than just chasing money. Which, yeah, that's true. But when you've got a newborn crying because they're hungry, needing diapers, and your bank account's empty, it's pretty hard to stay chill. You might catch yourself staring at those people living big, scrolling through their feeds, wishing you could switch places for a minute. The thing is, the new poor are often the ones who don't want to change their situation because doing so would actually take some effort. The mindset that keeps you stuck is like a mental virus. It spreads and makes it hard to break free. But the good news is, you can fix it. With some knowledge and effort, you can pull yourself out of that mindset. So have you noticed any signs of this where you live? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's talk about it. Number 16, you're ignoring the side hustle boom. Everyone talks about side hustles nowadays, but have you actually jumped on that bandwagon? Or are you still stuck in your 9-to-5 grind, believing that your job is enough to secure your future? Well, here's the truth. If you aren't exploring side hustles, you're falling behind. The gig economy is booming, and it's no longer just for artists and creatives. People are earning thousands from driving for Uber, selling digital products, or freelancing. The new poor aren't just broke. They're busy working but still ignoring how extra income can give them the cushion to weather financial storms. If your only income is your job, then you're one layoff away from disaster. Number 17, you're too comfortable with the status quo. We've all heard people say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But here's the thing. The new poor are stuck in the comfort zone, thinking that things will improve by themselves. Whether it's your job, your finances, or your lifestyle, complacency is the silent killer. You know there are better ways to manage money, invest, or create passive income, but you keep saying, I'll deal with it later. Well, later is the trap. Sticking with what you know might feel safe, but it's this exact mindset that keeps you locked in a cycle of paycheck to paycheck living. If you're not actively pushing for growth, you're actively falling behind. Number 18. Your parents were further ahead at your age. You started working later than the previous generation, right? They grew up in tougher times and had to grind through a lot more. But here's the thing. You've got something they didn't: technology. With the tools we have today, you can achieve in 5 years what took them 30 years to build. And it's all because of the tech we have at our fingertips that allows things to scale fast. Today, businesses aren't happy with just a 10% growth year over year. No, they're aiming to double every quarter, because with the right tools, it's possible. That older generation? They've done well, no doubt, but they're playing by rules that are frankly outdated. It's only a matter of time before young people realize they can do it better and faster. Why? Because you're plugged into the culture. You know what's trending, what's coming, and how to move with the times. If you understand this and leverage it, you're on the right path. You're not poor, you're pre-rich. You're on the journey, just not there yet. So if you're feeling like you're on that path, drop pre-rich in the comments and let's see who's actually putting in the work to make it happen.